It may sound strange to fade the reigning national champs. Fade is relative, though. Relative to their win total of 10.5, I am a fade the Buckeyes sort of guy. Once Julian Saint's got a full season under his belt, presuming and hoping for full health, we'll see how I feel then. Jay Stevens of Locked On Buckeyes is here to wrap today's show. Jay, I don't know how else to slice it. I tried to come up with creative mental tricks to not fall into what feels like a trap, but Ohio State under 10.5 is really appealing to me for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're working in a new quarterback, a brand new quarterback, whose first game is against a team that can legitimately win the national championship in the Texas Longhorns. Number two, this is not what you would call a cakewalk of a schedule. They have to go to Washington. I've seen people think that that's an upset potential. They have to go to Illinois. They have to go to Michigan. They have to play Penn State. And 10-2 should get you in the playoff with this schedule. But that's where I'm landing on the Buckeyes, Jay. New quarterback, roster turnover, tough road games. How crazy does that sound to you?
It doesn't sound very crazy because, Spence, I'm right there with you. The under is easier to believe than the over. If you go 11-1, just for example, you're beating Texas at home, you're beating Michigan in Ann Arbor, you're going to Seattle, Washington, and beating the Huskies. You're also going to Illinois and winning that game. You're going to Camp Randall, which is always a weirdly tough place to play. You're beating Penn State at home. That's very tough. I mean, if you ask anybody in college football, if you go 11-1 with that schedule, how would you feel? You'd feel pretty lucky. If you go 10-2, you'd feel pretty lucky. This is Ohio State, though, and 10-2 will still look very weird, but I think that's the easiest and probably correct way to go. You mentioned it very well early on. The new starting quarterback, we believe, is going to be Julian Saint. That's a tough game to go in week one, to go up against not just Texas, who has all the talent, but you got a coach that at one time as an OC got the best of Ryan Day. As a head coach, Day got the best of him. You believe that Sark might have the upper hand here. I believe in Day to do a lot of good things. You forgot one very clear thing, Spencer. That is, you got a new play caller in Brian Hartline, which is going to be very tricky against Texas. Going to be very tricky against a lot of teams out there. So, you forgot Patricia too. I believe in Patricia. I think him being a defensive coordinator is maybe an upgrade over Jim Knowles. We gotta wait to see how he transitions to college football.
Whoa.
I think him as a coordinator and him being able to work with different types of players is different than Knowles, because Knowles needs a certain type of skill set with all 11 guys. Patricia can figure that thing out and be very creative with whatever he has. But I think 10, not 10.5. You can't go 10.5 because there's not a half win you can have. I think 10-2 is more realistic than 11-1 or even undefeated. I don't see them going undefeated this year. 11-1 or 10-2 are the two records I think they're going to have, and it's weird saying this, but I think 10-2 is probably where they're going to be.
Yeah, and I just think that it's a sneaky, difficult schedule, as we mentioned, and I didn't even make the two new coordinators point, because look, at one point in time, every coordinator's new but that's part of the reason, Jay. I want to focus on that Texas game. Yeah. Because Ohio State is favored. I think that's free money on Texas, plus 2.5. It should be a great game. I trust Texas more in that spot, even though it's in Columbus, where I've seen Ohio State lose big games several times just within the last 4 to 5 years. And certainly they've won some big games. I'm not trying to say their home field advantage stinks or anything like that. But when I look at what Ohio State has done in those spots, and particularly last year, it was a really veteran coaching staff. It was Chip Kelly's first year as the offensive coordinator. But it wasn't Chip Kelly's first year as an offensive coordinator. He's been calling plays in college football at the Power 4 or 5 level since 2007. So I view that as different than Brian Hart. I just think it's asking so much. Like, I agree Patricia can be good. I think, a lot of people are going to see him and think of what he was as the Lions head coach. Yeah. Like, he's being asked to be a coordinator in college, not a head coach in the NFL. These are two very different things. He can succeed. Hartline on the other side, though, am I supposed to believe that he's just going to be 10 out of 10, 5 stars, no notes, everything's firing on all cylinders with a brand new quarterback right away against Texas and the talent on that defense, I'm not saying they're going to go put up 10 points. I'm just saying that game is likely going to come down to 1 or 2 possessions. And if you're asking me which set of play callers, particularly on offense, I trust more, I'm going with Steve Sarkisian and the system that they have compared to what Brian Hartline is going to be implementing in a brand new fashion this year.
So here's my thing with the Texas game, since we're focusing on that. I can see Ryan Day taking an Urban Meyer role and saying, look, I trust you in certain games. I don't trust you in this one. I'm calling the plays. And I can easily see a scenario where Ryan Day calls plays against Texas, not Brian Hartline, because Day realizes what this means for the team to start the season with a lot of new faces in new places. He understands what it means for his legacy. These two teams played each other in the shoe 20 years ago. Texas won that game. And so I think Ryan Day also realizes the last time these two teams played in Columbus, the Longhorns won on the road. And so he's not trying to have that happen in his tenure. And so if Ryan Day is calling the plays, my opinion about that game is going to be a whole lot different than it is if Hartline's calling the plays. I hope, which I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope that Ryan Day at some point in the game's like, look, this ain't working. We ain't flowing. I'm taking this thing and I'm calling the plays. And I think there'll be, if that happens, I think there'll be a switch and a more consistent flow with the Buckeyes offense. But that's more of a TBD type of thing. I truly have no great feeling about if Day's going to do that or if Hartline's going to call the plays. I think Day has done a great job of showing that he believes in Hartline, that this is the right progression for him in his career. But a couple of years ago, we thought he was calling plays, and he didn't. It was Ryan Day calling plays, not Hartline. So, I don't know, man. I feel like it's a little bit weird to have a first-time play caller go up and call plays against Texas when Texas has dogs all over the field.
It reminds me of another team that I cover a pretty hefty amount here at this network.
Oh, boy,
and
here we go.
Back in 2000, no. We're not going down that. There's no leg to stand on here for the Ducks. Kenny Dillingham, his first ever game. We all agree Dillingham is great. And by the way, he spent 1 season in Oregon. He is revered in that entire community. They all love him and root for him at Arizona State. His first game ever calling plays was against Georgia in 2022. Okay, that was his first game. He knew Bo Nix from his time at Auburn, but his first time being the OC was the Georgia game. Now, this is not that level of a mismatch. That was a 17.5 point spread. This is a 2.5 point spread. And I think that's reflective of the caliber of teams that were on the field. My point is Dillingham was great as an OC. He was really, really good. But in game 1, there were a couple things that weren't quite right. You didn't have everything working exactly how you wanted to. So that's my hesitation and why I know Lee Corso is going to pick Brutus. There's no way he won't for that game, especially in Columbus. But I do think Texas is going to win. Real quick, Jay, to wrap today's show, I want to throw this at you. If Ohio State were to lose, I actually think they're going undefeated in these games because I have a lot of faith in Ryan Day, and I think by this point in the season they'll have worked a couple things out. If they were to lose a game between Washington, Wisconsin, and Illinois, who I think are widely and fairly seen as Tier 2 Big Ten teams/programs compared to Ohio State, that's obviously in the top tier, which of those games scares you the most?
Washington.
Wow.
Easily.
The disrespect for my Illini.
I don't believe Luke Altmaier is good enough with the team that he has around him to beat Ohio State. And I'm saying this knowing that Davis Warren led Michigan last year in a 13-10 win over the Buckeyes. Davis Warren was trash, but Michigan had a pretty good defense. An anomaly. Yeah, it was so odd. But Michigan had a defensive front that caused some issues for Ohio State. I also disrupted Will Howard, and he was not the same after he got popped, halfway through the second quarter. I think Washington has some dudes, and what we saw last year going to Pacific Northwest, it's a tough place to play. You know that covering Oregon all the time.
I do.
You go to Seattle in a wild place. It's going to be a night game. My hope, Spencer, is that it's not 8 p.m. local, 11 p.m. Eastern, that would be a straight up nightmare. Fox would love it because you get Ohio State at a time slot you're never going to get, but it'll probably be 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time. I'm worried about that game. If that's what we're talking about, that's potential second loss, only because Washington's going to have a lot of talent on offense and on defense. Jedd Fisch knows how to lead a program and to get them to take necessary steps in a necessary year, in the very next year. Because I think Washington was okay last year. They're going to be better this year.
Washington. Here's the note you got to know about Washington last year: undefeated at home, defeated on the road or in neutral site games. Did not win a single game away from Husky Stadium, but didn't lose a game inside Husky Stadium either.
No, I think that would be the one. They have guys on offense. I mean, I mentioned Darius Taylor recently about being a guy that can lead the conference in rushing yards. Denzel Boston can lead the conference. Well, Jeremiah Smith's going to do that, but there's someone that's can sneakily tiptoe his way to being the conference receiving yard leader. It would be Denzel Boston. Damon Williams, no guy to just laugh at. They have a lot of good players over there. Of those three, I think Washington is the easy choice.
The easy choice. Listen up, Sonny Verma. Jay Stevens has got no respect for the Illini. I mean, Washington is a tough place to play. Damon Williams is really good. You guys will see Darius Taylor another week when Minnesota comes to town. It's going to be fun. I'm excited to watch Ohio State's schedule this year. Jay Stevens, Locked on Buckeyes. He's on that side of the screen because my weatherman skills aren't very good. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.